7 people were dying, the surgeon was stuck in traffic, and the only person willing to move was a rookie nurse no one trusted. Elena Caldwell saved all 7 in under 60 minutes. No hesitation, no permission, just hands that moved like they'd done this 1,000 times before. That should have made her a hero. Instead, it made her a target. Because the moment those 7 lives were saved, the FBI walked through the doors, not to thank her, to investigate who she really was. This is that story. Before we begin, subscribe to my channel, follow this story to the very end, and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The call came in at 9:07 a.m. A dispatcher's voice cracked through the radio at St. Dominic Regional Medical Center in Richmond, Virginia. Multi-vehicle pileup, Interstate 95, 7 critical, no staging, all inbound. Elena Caldwell heard it from the supply closet where she was restocking gauze. 14 months on the job, youngest hire in the trauma department, the kind of nurse senior staff still called the new girl. She dropped everything and walked toward the trauma bay. The first stretcher hit the doors at 9:11. A man in his 60s, chest crushed against the steering column. The paramedic was already shouting, "Collapsed lung, left side, BP dropping, we're losing the window." The second stretcher came 12 seconds later. A woman, unconscious, oxygen crashing. Third one right behind. A teenager, already coding. Nurses scrambled. Residents shouted over each other. Orders collided. No one was leading because the one person who was supposed to lead wasn't there. "Where's Dr. Reeves?" a resident yelled. "Stuck on 95, same pileup." "You're kidding me." "Do I look like I'm kidding?" Elena stood just inside the trauma bay doors. Her hands were already gloved. Her eyes moved across the room, not panicked, not frozen, calculating, reading the chaos the way someone reads a sentence they've seen before. The first patient's oxygen dropped below 80. An alarm screamed. A resident stared at the monitor like it owed him an explanation. Elena stepped forward. "Trauma 1 is mine." The resident turned. "Excuse me?" "Needle decompression. Right now, he's not making it to imaging." "That's not your call." "You're right." Elena was already reaching for the kit. "But if we wait for someone to make the call, he dies. So tell me, who's making it?" Nobody answered. She didn't wait for them to. Needle in. Pressure released. A hiss of trapped air escaped the chest cavity. The man's oxygen climbed. Not a lot, just enough. Just enough to buy him another 60 seconds of life. Elena didn't celebrate. She was already turning. "What's the status on bed 2? A nurse blinked. Pulse is thready. We're trying to..." "Stop trying. Push epi. 0.3 milligrams. Now." "I can't authorize." "I'm not asking you to authorize. I'm asking you to save her life. There's a difference." The nurse hesitated for 1 second. Then she moved. The third stretcher, the teenager, flatlined completely. The high-pitched scream of a heart that had stopped filled the room. A resident froze. A nurse stepped back. Elena was already there. "Paddles, charge to 200. "You can't." "Charge, now." The paddles came down, once. Nothing. Elena's jaw tightened. Again, 300. Second shock. The monitor stuttered. Then a beat, weak, unsteady, but there. Elena exhaled through her nose. One breath, that was all she allowed herself. "Get him on a drip, keep his rhythm. If it drops below 50, you call me. Not the desk. Me." She turned and the room had changed. Not the equipment, not the lights, the people. They were looking at her differently now, not with trust, not yet, with something closer to surrender. The kind of look people give when they stop questioning and start following. The fourth patient rolled in. Abdominal trauma, blood pressure unreadable. "OR prep?" someone asked. "No time," Elena said. "Clamp and transfuse, right here." A senior nurse, a woman named Dolores who'd been working trauma for 22 years, stared hard. "You're calling that? In the Bay?" Elena didn't look up. "I'm calling life over procedure. You can write me up later." Dolores didn't write her up. She handed her the clamp. Patient 5 arrived seizing. Elena stabilized the seizure, identified a brain bleed from pupil response alone, and had a surgical consult paged before the patient's gurney stopped rolling. A doctor nearby muttered, "She didn't even touch the chart." "Because the chart is behind the injury," Elena replied without turning. "The patient is in front of me." Patient 6 was the one that almost broke the room. A man in his 40s, chest trauma compounded by a severe head injury, breathing barely present. A resident looked at the scans being transmitted from the ambulance tablet. "He needs imaging. Now! We move him upstairs and—" "If we move him," Elena said, "we lose him." "That's hospital protocol." Elena met his eyes. The resident was young, maybe 28, fresh from residency, still believing that the right answer was always the one written down somewhere. "Protocol assumes a surgeon is present," Elena said calmly. "Protocol assumes adequate staffing. Protocol assumes we're not standing in a room with 6 critical patients and no attending. None of that is true right now. So I'm asking you, do you want to follow the book, or do you want this man to see his family tonight?" The resident swallowed. "We stay," he said quietly. Elena stabilized him. Airway secured, bleeding controlled, vitals climbing. 6. Doctor. Marcus Reeves finally burst through the trauma bay doors at 9:58 a.m. His coat was half on. His hair was a mess. His hands were shaking. Not from the cold, from knowing he was late to something that couldn't afford lateness. He stopped 2 steps inside the room. Every bed was occupied. Every monitor was beeping steady. Every patient was alive. Reeves looked left, looked right, looked at the staff, most of whom were staring at Elena like they just witnessed something they couldn't explain. "What the hell happened?" he said. Nobody answered right away. Then Dolores, the senior nurse, the one who'd been doing this for 22 years, said it quietly. "She happened." Reeves looked at Elena. She stood off to the side, peeling off a pair of gloves that were soaked through. Blood on her forearms, blood on her scrubs, none of it hers. "Caldwell?" he said. "You did this?" "The team did it," Elena said. "That's not what I'm hearing." Before she could respond, the 7th patient arrived. This one was different. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, airway compromised. The kind of injuries that made experienced surgeons pause and calculate odds before touching anything. Elena didn't pause. She assessed in seconds. Airway first, bleeding second, fractures last. She moved with a rhythm that didn't belong in this hospital. It belonged somewhere else, somewhere louder, somewhere more dangerous. "She's not even looking at the chart," a resident whispered. "Because she doesn't need to," Dolores whispered back. The 7th monitor steadied. 7 green lines, 7 lives. Elena stepped back. Her hands trembled, just once, just barely, and she pressed them flat against the counter to make it stop. Dr. Reeves walked toward her slowly. "Elena, not now." "Where did you learn to do that?" She didn't answer. She pulled off her gloves and dropped them in the bin. "Elena," I said, "not now." The tension between them was thick enough to touch. Reeves had questions. The whole room had questions. But Elena's face, calm, composed, utterly unreadable, made it clear that answers weren't coming. Not yet. Then the automatic doors at the end of the hall slid open. 2 men walked in. Dark suits, polished shoes. The kind of posture that said government before a badge ever came out. They moved through the ER with a calm that didn't belong there. Unhurried, precise, like men who already knew exactly what they were walking into. They stopped at the nurse's station. The taller one, mid-40s, sharp jaw, eyes that missed nothing, opened his wallet slowly. A gold badge caught the overhead light. FBI, he said. Special Agent James Holt. The shorter one did the same. Special Agent David Carr. Holt's voice was measured, almost gentle. We're looking for Elena Caldwell. The charge nurse looked up from her screen. She's in the trauma bay. She just saved. We know, Holt said. That's why we're here. Every conversation in the hallway stopped. A nurse holding an IV bag froze mid-step. A resident who'd been updating a chart looked up like he'd heard a gunshot. Dr. Reeves moved first. He stepped between the agents and the trauma bay like a wall. This is my department. Whatever you need can wait. We're still stabilizing. It can't wait, Holt said. Not aggressive, not confrontational, just factual. Doctor, I understand the timing, but we need to speak with her now. About what? Holt didn't blink. About who she is. Reeves opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. She's a nurse, a damn good one apparently. Apparently, Carr repeated, and something about the way he said it made the word sound like a question. Elena appeared in the hallway behind Reeves. She'd heard everything. Her face hadn't changed. No panic, no surprise. Just a stillness that, if you looked closely enough, was its own kind of alarm. I'm Elena Caldwell, she said. What's this about? Holt studied her for 3 full seconds before speaking. We need a quiet room. She's not going anywhere without, Reeves started. She's not under arrest, Holt said. Then Carr added 2 words that sucked the oxygen out of the corridor. Not yet. Elena looked at Reeves. Something passed between them. Not words, something older. The kind of look a person gives when they've been expecting a knock on the door for 5 years, and it's finally come. It's okay, she said softly. Elena, Marcus, it's okay. She walked toward the agents, steady, straight, like a woman walking not toward danger, but back towards something she'd spent 5 years running from. The trauma bay doors swung closed behind her, and inside that bay, 7 monitors beeped on. 7 lives saved by a woman whose own life was about to be torn wide open. Dolores looked at Dr. Reeves. His face was gray. Did you know? She asked. Reeves shook his head slowly. I don't think any of us did. Down the hallway, a door closed, and behind it, Elena Caldwell sat across from 2 federal agents who already knew that the woman in blood-stained scrubs was not who she claimed to be. The only question left was how deep the lie went, and whether 7 saved lives would be enough to outweigh whatever truth was buried underneath. The consultation room was small, 2 chairs on one side, 1 on the other. A table between them that felt more like a barrier than furniture. Elena sat with her hands folded in her lap. Not because she was calm, because she knew what shaking hands looked like to men who read people for a living. Special Agent James Holt sat across from her. He unbuttoned his jacket slowly and placed a tablet flat on the table. Special Agent David Carr remained standing near the door, arms crossed, watching her the way a man watches something he hasn't figured out yet. Holt spoke first. For the record, this conversation is voluntary. You're free to leave at any time. Elena tilted her head. Then why does it feel like I'm not? Holt almost smiled. Almost. You're sharp. I'm tired. There's a difference. I just spent an hour keeping 7 people alive. So whatever this is, get to it. Carr shifted his weight. All right, let's get to it. He pulled the tablet toward himself and tapped the screen twice. 9:12 a.m. You performed a needle decompression on a 63-year-old male with a tension pneumothorax. No physician present, no authorization. He was dying. 9:14 a.m. You ordered 0.3 milligrams of epinephrine pushed on a female patient in cardiovascular collapse. Again, no authorization. She was dying too. 9:17 a.m. You defibrillated a 17-year-old male. Twice. Called the charge levels yourself. Because no one else was calling anything. Carr looked up from the screen. 9:22 a.m. You performed a field-style clamp and transfusion in the trauma bay, not in an OR, in the bay, on a patient with massive abdominal hemorrhaging. Elena said nothing. 9:31 a.m., Carr continued. You identified a brain bleed from pupil response alone. No scan, no imaging, just your eyes. Still nothing. 9:40 a.m., you overrode hospital protocol on patient 6, refused to send him to imaging, stabilized him bedside using techniques that aren't in any civilian nursing manual I've ever seen. Silence. Carr set the tablet down and leaned forward, and at 10:03 a.m., you managed a 7th patient with injuries severe enough to kill most people before they reached the hospital. You assessed, acted, and stabilized in under 4 minutes, without once looking at a chart. Elena met his eyes. Is there a question in there? Holt took over. His voice was quieter, more dangerous for it. The question, Ms. Caldwell, is how? How what? How does a nurse with 14 months of experience perform like a trauma surgeon with 20 years in combat medicine? The word combat hung in the air between them. Elena's expression didn't change. People learn fast in emergencies. Not like this, Holt said. I've been doing this for 19 years. I've seen nurses step up. I've seen residents surprise themselves. What you did in that trauma bay wasn't stepping up. It was stepping back into something. Elena's fingers pressed tighter against each other in her lap. You're reading a lot into a busy morning. Holt reached for the tablet. He tapped it once and turned the screen to face her. Your name triggered a federal alert the moment it was entered into the hospital's trauma log system. Not today, the moment it was entered, 14 months ago. Elena's breath caught, just barely, just enough for Holt to notice. Your nursing license is valid, he continued. Your employment record checks out. Social security number is clean. Background check came back clear. He paused. But there's a gap. A gap. 5 years. From 2012 to 2017. No tax filings. No address. No employment records. No medical records. No phone contracts. No bank activity. Nothing. Holt leaned back slightly. 5 years where Elena Caldwell didn't exist. The room got smaller. People take time off, Elena said. People don't vanish from every federal database for 5 years and then reappear with a nursing license and a new address in Virginia. That's not time off. That's a ghost protocol. Elena stared at him. He stared back. Neither of them blinked. Carr pulled up a second file. He didn't turn the screen this time. He read from it. Your name, or a version of it, appears in a Department of Defense classified personnel database. Flag level, black. I don't know what that means. It means the file is sealed so deep that opening it triggered alerts in 3 separate agencies. Ours was just the fastest to respond. Elena's jaw tightened. A muscle in her neck flexed. She pressed her hands flatter against her thighs. Holt watched every micro movement. You know what we found, don't you? I know you think you found something. We found a service record, Navy, Special Operations Medical Detachment, assigned to a unit designated Ghost Cell 7. The name landed like a bullet in the small room. Elena didn't flinch, but she stopped breathing for exactly 2 seconds. Holt counted them. Ghost Cell 7, he repeated, deployed to Kandahar Province, Afghanistan, 2014, attached to a classified operation called Iron Veil, tasked with extracting high-value intelligence witnesses from a compound in hostile territory. Elena said nothing. The operation was declared a failure. The unit was listed as lost. Every member, Holt paused and looked directly into her eyes. Every single member was designated KIA, killed in action, presumed dead. He turned the tablet one more time. A redacted document filled the screen, names blacked out, photos blurred beyond recognition. But one section remained visible, a personnel entry, a different name, not Elena Caldwell, something else, something classified, and stamped across the page in red block letters that left no room for interpretation. KIA, presumed, no remains recovered. That's you, Holt said quietly. Isn't it? It wasn't a question. The door slammed open. Dr. Marcus Reeves stood in the frame, breathing hard, face flushed. What the hell is going on in here? Doctor, this is a federal. I don't care what it is. She's my nurse. She just saved 7 lives in my trauma bay, and you're sitting here treating her like a suspect? She's not a suspect, Carr said. Then what is she? Holt looked at Elena, then back at Reeves. That's what we're trying to determine. Reeves stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Then determine it with me in the room. Holt considered this for a moment. Fine, sit down. Reeves pulled a chair to Elena's side. He sat. His hand rested on the table near hers, not touching, just close. Elena looked at him. Something shifted in her face. The mask cracked. Not much, just a fracture. Enough for Reeves to see that whatever this was, it was heavy. Heavier than anything a 14-month nurse should be carrying. Elena, Reeves said gently, talk to me. She looked down at her hands. The hands that had just saved 7 lives. The hands that had once done things she swore she'd never do again. My name is Elena Caldwell, she said slowly. Now. Reeves frowned. What do you mean now? I mean it wasn't always. Holt leaned forward. Go on. Elena closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. The rookie nurse was gone. The woman sitting in that chair was someone older. Not in years, in weight. I was a combat medic, she said. Navy Special Operations. Assigned to a unit that doesn't officially exist. We were sent to places that don't officially exist, to save people who don't officially exist. Reeves stared at her like he was seeing a stranger, wearing a familiar face. Ghost Cell 7, she continued. 6 operators. I was the medical lead. My job was to keep the team alive no matter what. No hospitals, no backup, no medevac. Just me, a field kit, and whatever I could improvise. Carr's pen stopped moving. How long? 3 years active, 12 deployments. Kandahar, Helmand, places I still can't name. We went in, we did the job, we got out. That was the deal. Holt nodded slowly. Until Iron Veil. Elena's hands finally trembled. She pressed them together. Iron Veil was supposed to be a simple extraction. Go in, pull out 2 intelligence witnesses from a compound, bring them home. 48 hours. Clean. What happened? Everything that could go wrong did. Bad intel, compromised entry point. We walked into an ambush. 2 of my team were hit in the first 90 seconds. I kept them alive while the rest of us fought our way to the targets. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were somewhere else, somewhere far away and dark. We got the witnesses. We completed the extraction. All 6 of us made it out alive. Both witnesses made it out alive. The mission was a success. But, Reeves whispered, but the witnesses knew things. Things about people inside our own government. People with enough power to make problems disappear. Elena looked at Holt, including us. Holt's expression didn't change, but his fingers pressed harder against the tablet. 2 weeks after we got back, Elena continued, we were called into a briefing. A man I'd never seen before. No name, no rank, just a suit and a smile that made my skin crawl. Told us the mission had been reclassified. From successful extraction to catastrophic failure. Reeves shook his head. They can do that? They did it, Elena said. Officially, the mission failed. Officially, the compound was destroyed with all personnel inside. Officially, Ghost Cell 7 was killed in action. Every name, every record, every trace of us, gone. Carr stopped writing entirely. And unofficially? Unofficially, we were given a choice. Disappear voluntarily, new names, new lives, no contact with each other ever again, or be disappeared permanently. The kind of disappearing where no one finds you. The room was silent, not the comfortable kind, the kind that presses against your chest. I chose to live, Elena said. I took a new name, built a new history, became someone small enough that no one would ever look twice. She looked down at her scrubs. I became a nurse because it was the only way I could still do what I was born to do without anyone asking how I learned to do it. Reeves's voice came out rough. 5 years? You've been hiding for 5 years? I wasn't hiding. I was surviving. There's a difference. And the others? Holt asked. The rest of Ghost Cell 7? Elena didn't answer. Elena. They're alive, she said quietly. As far as I know. As far as you, we were told no contact, ever. That was the condition. If any of us surfaced, if any of us made noise, the deal was off. For all of us. Holt processed this slowly. And today, you made noise. Elena closed her eyes. Today, 7 people were dying. And I couldn't stand there and let that happen. I couldn't be small enough to let someone die. Reeves reached over and put his hand on hers. She flinched. Then she didn't. Holt exchanged a look with Carr. Something passed between them that Elena caught immediately. It wasn't doubt. It was concern. There's something else, she said. Isn't there? Holt hesitated. That was new. He hadn't hesitated once since walking into the hospital. Your reappearance didn't just trigger our alert, he said. It triggered others. How many others? At least 3 agencies that we can confirm. Possibly more. Elena pulled her hand away from Reeves. Who? That's classified. Don't give me classified. I was classified. My entire life was classified. Who is looking for me? Carr answered. The same people who buried you. The words landed and didn't bounce. They sank. Deep. Elena stood up, not fast, not panicked. The way a person stands when they realize sitting still is no longer safe. You said I'm not under arrest. You're not, Holt confirmed. Then I'm going back to my patients. Elena, those people are alive because of me. And right now, I'm still their nurse. Whatever you need from me can wait until they're stable enough to never need me again. She walked toward the door. Holt didn't stop her, but his voice followed her. Miss Caldwell. She stopped, didn't turn. The people who erased your unit, he said, they thought you were dead. As of this morning, they know you're not. Whatever happens next isn't going to be about your nursing license. Elena stood still for 3 seconds. Then she opened the door and walked out. Reeves stayed. He looked at the agents. His face had aged 10 years in 20 minutes. Is she in danger? He asked. Holt didn't sugarcoat it. Yes. How much? That depends on how fast certain people move and how much they're willing to do to put a ghost back in the ground. Reeves swallowed hard. She's the best nurse I've ever seen. She saved 7 people today. Doesn't that count for something? Holt closed the tablet and stood. Doctor, the people we're talking about don't count lives saved. They count loose ends. Reeves watched them leave. Then he sat alone in the consultation room, staring at the empty chair where Elena had been. The chair where a woman he thought he knew had become someone he didn't recognize. His phone buzzed. A text from Dolores in the trauma bay. Patient 7 is awake, asking for Elena, by name. Reeves read it twice, by name. He stood, hands unsteady, and walked toward the trauma bay. The corridor felt longer than it should have. The lights felt harsher. Every person he passed seemed to move in slow motion. He found Elena at the nurse's station, documenting vitals like nothing had happened. Like 2 FBI agents hadn't just told her that her past was alive and hunting her. Elena. She didn't look up. I know, patient 7. How do you know? She put the pen down. Because the universe doesn't give you one miracle without charging interest. They walked together toward the room. Reeves wanted to say something, anything, that would make this moment smaller, more manageable. But there were no words for what was happening. Elena pushed the door open. The patient lay propped up on the bed, bandaged, broken, but his eyes were open and sharp. too sharp for a man who'd been clinically dead 45 minutes ago. He saw Elena, and his face did something that didn't match a stranger's reaction. It softened. The way a face softens when it sees someone it thought it would never see again. "Doc," he rasped. His voice was wrecked, but the word was clear. "Didn't think I'd see you again." Elena stopped in the doorway. Her whole body went rigid. The color drained from her face so fast that Reeves instinctively reached for her arm. "Elena?" he said. "Who is this?" She didn't answer him. She was staring at the man on the bed. The man who was supposed to be dead. The man who was supposed to be a stranger. The man who had just called her Doc, a word that no one in this hospital had ever used for her. The patient smiled weakly, painfully. "That clock you always talked about," he whispered, "the one that starts ticking when the mission goes sideways." Elena's voice came out barely above a breath. "Kyle." Reeves looked between them. "You know him?" The patient, Kyle Dunham, laughed. It turned into a cough that shook his entire body. "Know her? She kept half of us breathing in Kandahar." The walls closed in. The monitors beeped on. And Elena Caldwell stood in the doorway of a hospital room in Richmond, Virginia, staring at a ghost from a life she'd buried 5 years ago. A ghost who had just said her old name out loud. In a building full of people who were already asking questions she couldn't answer. Elena closed the door behind her. Kyle Dunham lay on the other side of it, alive, breathing, and carrying a name she hadn't spoken in 5 years. She pressed her back against the wall and let herself have 3 seconds. 3 seconds to feel the weight of what just happened before she locked it down again. Reeves stood beside her. He hadn't moved since they'd left the room. His face was the color of old paper. "Elena, you need to explain what just happened in there." "Not here." "Then where?" "Because right now I've got 2 FBI agents in my hospital, a patient who just called you Doc, and a trauma bay full of staff who think you're either a hero or a fraud. I need something." Elena looked at him. "He's from my unit, Ghost Cell 7. His name is Kyle Dunham. He was our point man, the one who went in first every single time. And he ended up here, in your ER, on your shift? That's a coincidence?" "I don't believe in coincidences." "Neither do I. So what is it?" Elena didn't answer, because the truth was she didn't know. And not knowing scared her more than the FBI, more than the file, more than anything that had happened since 9/12 that morning. Her phone buzzed. A hospital-wide page. Code Silver. Security alert. All staff hold positions. Reeves grabbed her arm. "That's a weapons alert." Elena was already moving. They reached the main corridor at 12:14 p.m. Hospital security had locked down the north entrance. 2 guards stood at the elevator bank, radios crackling. A charge nurse was redirecting visitors. Somewhere on the second floor, someone was shouting. Elena stopped a passing security officer. "What happened?" "Unauthorized personnel came in through the parking structure, bypassed the badge readers." "How many?" "We don't know yet." "You don't know?" The officer moved on without answering. Elena turned to Reeves. "Get the trauma patients moved. Different wings. Now." "Elena, I'm the attending. I give the orders around." "Marcus," her voice dropped. Not angry, not commanding, something worse. Afraid. "The people who buried my unit are not the kind of people who knock on doors. If they're here for a reason. And everyone in that trauma bay is a witness to what I did this morning." Reeves went pale. "You think they'd hurt patients?" "I think they'd do whatever it takes to keep their secrets buried, including burying the people who saw me work." That broke through. Reeves pulled out his phone and started making calls. Elena moved toward the ICU where 3 of the morning's patients had been transferred. She found Dolores at the nursing station. "I need beds reassigned. Patients from this morning, scatter them. Different floors, different wings. Do it quietly." Dolores looked at her over her glasses. Honey, I've been a nurse since before you were born. You want to tell me why I'm rearranging my unit like we're expecting a hurricane? Because we might be. Dolores studied her for 2 long seconds. Then she picked up the phone. I need transport for 3 patients. Yes, now. No, I don't need a reason. I need a wheelchair and 2 gurneys in the next 4 minutes. Elena squeezed her hand. Thank you. Don't thank me. Explain later. At 12:22 p.m., Agent Holt found Elena in the stairwell between the 2nd and 3rd floors. He wasn't calm anymore. The measured, unhurried federal agent from 2 hours ago had been replaced by someone sharper, tighter. We've got a problem, he said. I know. Code Silver. It's not just the Code Silver. We ran Kyle Dunham's name, your patient in room 7. Elena braced herself. And? He's flagged too. Same classification as you. KIA presumed. Ghost Cell 7. But here's what doesn't add up. Holt stepped closer. His injuries from the accident are real. The multi-vehicle pileup that happened. Traffic cameras confirm it. He was in the 3rd vehicle. But Elena, he was driving toward this hospital when it happened. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? He wasn't passing through Richmond. His GPS shows he departed from Norfolk at 6:45 this morning. Destination, St. Dominic Regional Medical Center. He was coming here. He was coming to you. Elena's mind raced. Kyle hadn't seen her in 5 years. The deal was no contact, no communication, nothing. If he broke that deal, there was a reason worth risking everything. I need to talk to him, she said. Not yet. There's more. Holt pulled out his phone. 38 minutes ago, we intercepted a communication. Encrypted, military grade. The kind of encryption that doesn't get used for casual conversation. What did it say? 2 words. Confirm alive. Elena's stomach dropped. Who sent it? We're working on that, but the signal bounced through 3 different relay points before it reached a server in Northern Virginia. Langley adjacent. CIA? Or someone with access to their infrastructure. Elena, whoever sent that message already knows you're alive. They've known since the trauma log triggered the alert this morning. And now they're confirming, which means they're deciding. Deciding what? Holt didn't answer. He didn't have to. Elena pushed past him and headed back toward Kyle's room. Holt followed. Elena, I need you to stay away from him until we secure. He came to warn me. Whatever he knows is the reason he drove 3 hours to find me. I'm not waiting for your clearance. She pushed open the door at 12:31 p.m. Kyle was trying to sit up. His face was gray with pain, but his eyes were fierce. A nurse was adjusting his IV, looking nervous. Leave us, Elena said. The nurse looked at Holt. Holt nodded. She left. Elena pulled a chair to Kyle's bedside. Talk, Kyle coughed. Blood spotted the corner of his lip. Always straight to business. Some things don't change. Kyle, why are you here? His smile faded. Because Mercer is dead. The name punched a hole through Elena's chest. Mercer. David Mercer. Their explosives specialist. The quietest man in Ghost Cell 7. The one who always said he'd disappear to Montana and never talk to another human being again. When? Elena whispered. 3 weeks ago. Found in his cabin outside Kalispell. Officially ruled a heart attack. And unofficially? Kyle's eyes hardened. 42-year-old man in peak physical condition doesn't die of a heart attack. Not without help. Elena gripped the bedrail. Her knuckles went white. How do you know it wasn't natural? Because I talked to his neighbor, old rancher, lives about a mile up the road. He told me 2 men came to see Mercer the day before he died. Suits, government plates, stayed about an hour. That doesn't prove. The rancher said Mercer was fine that morning, chopping wood, waving from the porch. By sundown, he was dead. And those 2 men? They came back the next day, went inside the cabin for 20 minutes, and left, before the coroner even arrived. Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her knees. Who else knows? That's why I'm here. Kyle reached for her wrist. His grip was weak, but his eyes burned. They're cleaning house, Elena. Mercer was first. I don't know the order, but we're all on the list. All of us? Everyone who was on Iron Veil. Everyone who knows what those witnesses said. Everyone who can prove the mission succeeded. Holt had been listening from the doorway. He stepped inside. Sergeant Dunham, what exactly did those witnesses know? Kyle looked at Elena. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. The witnesses we extracted, Kyle said slowly, were Afghan intelligence officers who had evidence of a black site operation run by a senior U.S. military official. An operation that involved the diversion of military funds, the use of unauthorized interrogation methods, and the deaths of 11 civilian prisoners. Holt's jaw tightened. Who was the official? We didn't know his name then. We just knew the rank, Brigadier General. And now? Kyle looked at Elena again. She spoke this time. His name is Nathan Voss. He's no longer a Brigadier General. He was promoted, twice, and then he moved to intelligence. Holt's face changed. Not surprise, recognition. Colonel Nathan Voss, Defense Intelligence. You know him? Elena said. I know of him. He's connected, very connected. The kind of connected where investigations go sideways and witnesses have accidents. Mercer wasn't an accident, Kyle said. And the car wreck this morning wasn't either. Elena froze. What are you saying? I'm saying I was being followed. From the moment I left Norfolk. A black SUV, no plates. Stayed 2 car lengths back for 60 miles. When I took the exit toward the hospital, they accelerated. Cut in front of a tractor trailer. The truck jackknifed. The pileup started. 7 cars. 7 patients. Elena stood up so fast the chair scraped backward. The pileup was engineered? I can't prove it, but I know what I saw, and I know what they're willing to do. Holt was already on his phone. Carr, I need you to pull traffic camera footage from I-95, mile markers 71 through 78. Every camera, every angle, priority 1. At 12:47 p.m., the hospital's security radio crackled. North stairwell, level 2. We've got an individual, no badge, no ID. He's not responding to verbal commands. Elena's body went cold. They're inside. Holt drew his weapon. Stay here. No, Elena, this is a federal. They're here because of me. Every patient in this building is at risk because of me. I'm not hiding in a room while people I swore to protect get hurt. Holt looked at her. For 1 second, he didn't see a nurse. He saw a soldier, the kind who walks toward gunfire because walking away was never an option. Stay behind me, he said. They moved into the corridor. The hospital felt different now. The normal rhythm of pages and footsteps and distant conversations had been replaced by something tighter. Staff moved faster. Voices were lower. Fear had seeped into the walls. At 12:53 p.m., they reached the second-floor landing. Carr was already there with 2 hospital security guards. Individual has been contained in the East Corridor. He had credentials. What kind? Holt asked. DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. Elena's blood went cold. Voss. Not Voss himself, one of his people. But Elena, Carr hesitated. There's a second individual. Entered through the service entrance on the south side. We lost him on camera near the records wing. He's going for files, Elena said. My employment records, my background paperwork, anything that connects Elena Caldwell to what happened this morning. Holt pointed at one security guard. Records wing, lock it down. Nothing leaves, no one enters. The guard took off running. Elena grabbed Carr's arm. Where are my patients? The 7 from this morning. Carr checked his tablet. Dolores moved 3 of them already. 2 are still in post-op recovery. 1 is in radiology, and Dunham is still in his room. Someone needs to be at his door, right now. We don't have the manpower to, then I'll do it myself. Elena, that man drove 3 hours to warn me. He survived a car accident that was meant to kill him. I am not leaving him alone in a room with an unlocked door while Nathan Voss's people are walking through this hospital. Carr looked at Holt. Holt nodded. Go. Elena ran. Not like a nurse, not like a civilian. She moved through the corridors the way she'd moved through compounds in Kandahar. Fast, low, aware of every corner and doorway and line of sight. She reached Kyle's room at 1:02 p.m. The door was open. The bed was empty. Her heart stopped. She checked the bathroom. Empty. Checked the hallway. Nothing. The IV stand was still there. The monitors were still beeping, tracking vitals for a patient who was no longer connected. Kyle, she called, a voice behind her. Looking for someone? Elena spun. A man stood at the end of the corridor, mid-50s, silver hair, ramrod straight posture. He wore a gray suit that fit like it had been made for him. His hands were empty, but his eyes weren't. They were full of calculation. Colonel Nathan Voss. Hello, Elena, he said. The way he said her name made it sound like a door closing. You look good, better than dead. Elena's hands clenched at her sides. Where is he? Dunham? He's being relocated for his own safety. By who? By people who understand the situation better than the FBI agents playing catch-up in your hallway. Elena took a step forward. If you heard him, I've never heard anyone, Elena. I've made difficult decisions. There's a difference. You of all people should understand that. You made quite a few difficult decisions this morning. Don't compare us. Why not? You saved 7 lives by ignoring the rules. I saved a nation's security by ignoring the rules. The math is the same. You murdered Mercer. Voss didn't flinch. Mercer made a choice. He started talking to people he shouldn't have talked to, asking questions that were buried for a reason. He was one of ours. He was a liability. Voss took a step closer. Just like Dunham is now. Just like you are. Elena held her ground. Is that why you're here? To make me a liability that gets handled? Voss studied her. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not warmth, not cruelty, something in between. Something that reminded Elena of the man who had once stood in front of Ghost Cell 7 and promised them the mission was worth the risk. I'm here, he said quietly, because you're the only one I ever respect, and because what happens next doesn't have to go the way you think. You killed our friend. You buried our unit. You erased us from existence. And now you want to negotiate? I want to survive. Same as you. Same as everyone. He glanced down the hallway. The FBI has maybe 10 minutes before my people finish what they came to do. The files, the records, the surveillance footage from this morning, all of it disappears. You go back to being Elena Caldwell, trauma nurse. Dunham goes back to wherever he was hiding, and this morning becomes exactly what it looked like. A talented nurse having a very good day. And Mercer stays dead, which he already is. Elena's chest felt like it was being crushed. She stared at the man who had shaped the worst and best years of her life. The man who had sent them into fire and then set fire to the evidence that they'd survived. What about the witnesses, she asked. The intelligence officers we pulled out of Kandahar, what happened to them? Voss's smile disappeared. They were resettled, new identities, new countries. Are they alive? The pause lasted exactly 1 second too long. Elena knew. She'd known for 5 years, but hearing the silence confirmed it. You killed them too. I didn't kill anyone. You gave the orders. I maintain national security. Elena shook her head slowly. No, you maintained your career, your clearance, your power. You buried people to save yourself, and you're standing here, in my hospital, asking me to help you do it again. Voss's expression hardened. I'm giving you a chance, Elena, the only one you're going to get. Walk away. Forget this morning. Forget Dunham. Forget Ghost Cell 7. Or what? Voss leaned in. close enough that she could smell the cold mint on his breath. Or I stopped being the one asking nicely. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Holt and Carr moving fast, weapons drawn. Behind them, 2 hospital security guards. Voss straightened his jacket calmly. He looked at Elena one last time. 10 minutes, he whispered. That's all you have to decide. Then he turned and walked down the hallway with the posture of a man who had never been afraid of anything in his life. Holt shouted for him to stop. Voss didn't stop. He reached a service door, pushed it open, and was gone before anyone could reach him. Holt spun toward Elena. Was that him? Was that Voss? Yes. Where's Dunham? Gone. Voss's people moved him. Carr slammed his hand against the wall. We need to lock this hospital down completely. No one in, no one out. Elena shook her head. It's too late for that. He wouldn't have shown himself unless his people were already done. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. No words, just a countdown timer. 10 minutes. Ticking. Elena stared at the screen. Her hands were steady. Her heartbeat was not. 9 minutes and 58 seconds. 9 minutes and 57. Somewhere in this hospital, Kyle Dunham was alone with people who had already killed once to protect their secrets. And Elena had less than 10 minutes to decide if she was going to disappear again or finally stand and fight. The clock kept ticking. It always had. And Elena Caldwell was done pretending she couldn't hear it. 9 minutes and 41 seconds. Elena stared at the countdown on her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen like touching it might make it real. It was already real. Kyle was gone. Voss was in the building. And somewhere between the walls of this hospital, men who work for a man who murdered their friend were moving like they owned the place. Holt grabbed her shoulder. Elena, focus. Where would they take him? Somewhere with an exit, parking structure, loading dock, anywhere they can get a vehicle close to the building without being seen. Carr, pull up the hospital layout. Every service exit, every loading zone. Carr was already on it. South loading dock is closest to where we lost Dunham's room. Connects to the service elevator on the basement level. From there, it's a straight shot to the parking structure. Elena didn't wait. She turned and ran toward the service elevator. Holt shouted behind her. She didn't stop. At 1:09 p.m., she hit the stairwell door with both hands and took the stairs 3 at a time. Her body remembered this. The urgency, the adrenaline, the feeling of running towards something dangerous because someone she cared about was on the other side of it. She reached the basement level in under a minute. The corridor was long, fluorescent lit, and empty. Her footsteps echoed. Her breathing was controlled. She'd been trained to run a quarter-mile in full gear and still hold a steady hand. A hospital basement was nothing. The loading dock doors were ahead. One was open. She could hear an engine idling. Elena slowed, pressed her back against the wall, listened. 2 voices, male, low. The words were clipped, professional, military cadence. Get him in. Watch the IV line. He's fighting. Then stop him from fighting. Elena's jaw clenched. Kyle was alive, and he was resisting. She looked around for anything she could use. A fire extinguisher hung on the wall 6 feet to her left. Heavy, metal. Not a weapon she'd trained with, but she'd improvised with worse. She pulled it from the mount and moved toward the open door. At 1:12 p.m., she stepped into the loading dock. 2 men, both in plain clothes, both built like operators. One was pulling Kyle toward a black SUV with tinted windows. Kyle was half standing, half dragging, his hospital gown torn at the shoulder, IV ripped from his arm, blood running down his wrist. The other man stood near the driver's door, hand resting inside his jacket. Elena's voice cut through the space like a blade. Let him go. Both men turned. The one holding Kyle tightened his grip. The other one pulled his hand from his jacket. Not a gun, a taser. He held it low, almost casual. Ma'am, this is a federal transfer. Step back. Federal transfer requires documentation, patient consent, and hospital authorization. You have none of those. I have a fire extinguisher and a really bad day. Let him go. The man with the taser smiled. You're the nurse. I'm a lot of things. Kyle coughed and tried to pull free. Elena, don't. They'll... Shut up, Kyle. I didn't save your life twice to watch you get kidnapped from my hospital. The man holding Kyle looked at his partner. A decision passed between them. The kind of silent communication that only trained operators share. The one with the taser took a step forward. Last chance. Walk away. Elena gripped the fire extinguisher. I don't walk away. You should know that by now. Voss certainly does. The name landed. Both men stiffened. The one with the taser hesitated for exactly 1 second. That was all Elena needed. She pulled the pin and discharged the extinguisher directly at his face. White chemical fog exploded into the space. The man stumbled backward, hands clawing at his eyes. Elena swung the canister hard, catching him across the shoulder. He went down. The second man released Kyle and reached for his weapon. Kyle, broken, bandaged, bleeding, threw his body weight into the man's knees. They both hit the concrete. Kyle screamed in pain. The man scrambled to recover. Elena was already on top of them. She slammed the base of the extinguisher into the man's wrist. He howled. His weapon skittered across the floor. Kyle, move! Elena grabbed his arm and pulled him upright. He leaned against her, heavy, gasping. Blood was soaking through his gown. You ripped your stitches, she said. You're welcome. They staggered toward the corridor. Behind them, the first man was getting to his feet, still half blind. The second was cradling his wrist. Neither was finished. Elena pushed Kyle through the stairwell door and pulled it shut. There was no lock. She jammed the fire extinguisher through the handle, buying them maybe 60 seconds. Can you climb? She asked. Kyle looked at the stairs, 12 steps to the first landing. His face was white. Do I have a choice? No. Then I can climb. She got him up 1 flight, then 2. His breathing was ragged. His hand gripped the railing so hard his knuckles looked like they might break through the skin. Elena held his other arm, taking as much of his weight as she could. At 1:17 p.m., they emerged on the first floor. The main corridor was busy again, staff moving, patients being wheeled, the ordinary machinery of a hospital continuing despite the extraordinary things happening in its veins. Elena pulled Kyle into an empty exam room and locked the door. She helped him onto the table and immediately checked his wounds. The abdominal stitches had torn. Blood was pooling beneath the gown. Hold pressure here, she said, pressing his hand against a gauze pad. Don't move it. Elena, don't talk either. Elena, listen to me. Kyle grabbed her wrist. His grip was weaker than before. His eyes were starting to lose focus. Mercer wasn't the first. She stopped. What? Before Mercer, Santos, Rachel Santos, our communications officer. Elena's blood went cold. Rachel is dead? 8 months ago. Car accident in Tucson. Single vehicle. Off a bridge. No. And before Rachel, Hayes, Tommy Hayes, our sniper. Drowned in Lake Michigan. Ruled accidental. Elena felt the room tilt. She braced herself against the exam table. 3 members of Ghost Cell 7. Dead. All within the past year. All ruled accidental. That's half our unit, she whispered. That's why I came to find you. Because you and I and Ortiz are the only ones left. And Ortiz isn't answering his phone. Elena's mind was racing. 6 members of Ghost Cell 7. 3 confirmed dead. Kyle in front of her, bleeding. Herself, exposed. And Marco Ortiz, their team leader, the man who'd held them all together in Kandahar, unreachable. How long has Ortiz been dark? She asked. 11 days. 11 days and you didn't? I've been running, Elena. I've been running since I found out about Mercer. I haven't slept in the same place twice. I drove to Norfolk because I thought the Navy base might offer some protection. It didn't. They didn't even have a record of me. I'm a dead man knocking on doors that were locked 5 years ago. Elena pressed fresh gauze against his wound. Her hands were steady, but her mind was screaming. Why me? Why come to me? Kyle's voice dropped. Because you're the one who kept the evidence. Everything in Elena's body went still. You know what I'm talking about, Kyle continued. The field recordings, the after-action reports, the copies of the witness testimonies. You made duplicates. I saw you do it. The night before we were erased, you copied everything. Kyle, tell me I'm wrong. She didn't tell him he was wrong, because he wasn't. At 1:24 p.m., the exam room door handle rattled. Someone knocked hard. Elena, it's Reeves. Open the door. Elena unlocked it. Reeves stepped in, took one look at Kyle on the table, and immediately went into physician mode. What happened to his stitches? Voss's men tried to take him. We ran. Reeves didn't ask for more detail. He pulled on gloves and started examining the wound. He needs surgery. This can't be patched at bedside. Then get him into an OR. Elena, the hospital is in a security lockdown. I can't just... Marcus, look at me. Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. 3 of my people are dead, murdered, made to look like accidents. Kyle is next. I'm next. And the man who's doing this is somewhere in this building right now. If you don't get Kyle into an OR where he's surrounded by staff and cameras and witnesses, he won't make it to tomorrow. Reeves stared at her. The weight of what she was telling him settled onto his shoulders like concrete. I'll get him into OR too. It's got the most visibility. I'll do the surgery myself. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just tell me this ends at some point. It ends, Elena said. Today. Reeves made the call. Within minutes, a surgical team was assembling. Kyle was transferred to a gurney. As they wheeled him toward the elevator, he reached for Elena's hand. The evidence, he whispered. Where is it? Elena leaned close. Somewhere Voss will never find it. Promise me. I promise. Kyle's eyes closed. Not unconsciousness, exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from running for months with no one to trust and nowhere safe. At 1:38 p.m., Elena found Holt in the hospital's security office. He was standing in front of a bank of monitors, watching camera feeds with an intensity that suggested he'd been doing this for the past 30 minutes without blinking. We lost Voss, he said without turning around. He left through the south garage. His men are gone too. Cars with local PD trying to set up a perimeter, but we both know it's too late. Elena stood beside him. It's not too late. Holt turned. Elena, he walked into a federal investigation, threatened a witness, attempted to kidnap a patient, and walked out. That doesn't happen unless someone with very serious power is making phone calls on his behalf. I know who he is. I know what he's done, and I can prove it. Holt went very still. How? When Ghost Cell 7 was declared dead, I was given 48 hours to close out my life and disappear. I used 20 of those hours to copy everything, every field recording from the extraction, every after-action report, every word the witnesses said during debrief, audio, video, documents, all of it. Holt's eyes widened. You made copies of classified material? I made copies of evidence that 3 members of my unit have been murdered to suppress. There's a difference. Where? Elena met his eyes. I'll give you the location, but I need something first. This isn't a negotiation. Everything is a negotiation. Voss taught me that. Holt crossed his arms. What do you want? Protection. For Kyle. For Marco Ortiz if he's still alive. And for me, full federal witness protection. New identities if we need them. Real ones this time, not the kind that come with a death certificate. I can't authorize that. Then find someone who can, because in about 6 hours, Voss is going to realize that his window for making this quiet is closing. And when that happens, he won't send 2 men with tasers. He'll send something worse. Holt studied her for a long moment. You're asking me to go to war with the Defense Intelligence Agency. I'm asking you to do your job. Protect American citizens from a man who's killing them to cover up war crimes. That's not a war, that's justice. At 2:15 p.m., Holt made a call. He stepped out of the security office and spoke on his phone for 11 minutes. Elena watched through the glass. She couldn't hear the words, but she could read his body language. Tension, resistance, then a shift. His shoulders dropped. His head nodded. Once, twice. Something had changed. He came back in. My SAC is contacting the Attorney General's office. If your evidence is what you say it is, we can get a federal protection order within 24 hours. Kyle doesn't have 24 hours. I'm posting agents at the OR and his recovery room. Carr will stay with him personally. No one gets near him without a federal badge. Elena exhaled. For the first time since 9/12 that morning, something loosened in her chest. Not relief, not yet, but the faintest possibility that this might end without more body bags. The evidence, Holt said. I need the location. Elena reached into her scrub pocket and pulled out a small key. Silver, unremarkable, the kind of key that opens a padlock at a storage facility. Unit 114, StoreMax facility on Broad Street, Richmond. I've been paying cash every month for 5 years. No name on the account, just a number. Holt took the key. What's inside? 2 hard drives, 3 flash drives, a box of printed documents, and 1 sealed envelope that Mercer gave me the night before we were erased. He said it was insurance. I never opened it. Why not? Because I hoped I'd never have to. Holt put the key in his jacket pocket. I'm sending a team to secure it now. Holt, Elena stopped him at the door. If Voss's people get there first, everything is gone. Every piece of proof that Ghost Cell 7 existed, that Iron Veil succeeded, that those witnesses were murdered, it all disappears, and Kyle and I become 2 more accidents. They won't get there first. You don't know that. Holt looked at her. No, but I know that I've been doing this for 19 years, and I have never once let a witness die on my watch. He left. Elena stood alone in the security office, surrounded by screens, showing every corner of the hospital. Doctors walking, nurses charting, patients sleeping, all of them unaware that behind the walls of their ordinary Tuesday, a war was being fought over secrets buried in the Afghan desert 5 years ago. At 2:47 p.m., her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She opened the message. A photo. Marco Ortiz, alive, bound to a chair in a room with no windows. His face was bruised. His left eye was swollen shut. Beneath the photo, 3 words. Time's up, Elena. Her hands didn't shake. She wouldn't let them. She saved the image, forwarded it to Holt's number with 1 word. Ortiz. And then set the phone down on the desk. She looked at her reflection in the dark monitor. Blue scrubs, bloodstains, a hospital badge that read, Elena Caldwell, RN. A name she'd built, a life she'd made. 14 months of being small and quiet and safe. All of it was gone now. At 3:02 p.m., Dolores found her standing in the hallway outside the OR where Reeves was operating on Kyle. Elena's eyes were dry, but her face looked like it was holding something back by force. You look like you need to sit down, Dolores said. I can't. Then you look like you need someone to stand next to you. Elena looked at the older woman. 22 years of nursing, hands that had held dying patients and screaming children and grieving families. Eyes that had seen everything a hospital could throw at a person. Dolores, you should stay away from me. Honey, I've been married 3 times, survived cancer twice, and raised 4 boys in South Richmond. I don't scare easy. Elena almost laughed. Almost. This is different. It's always different, and I'm always still here. The OR doors opened at 3:34 p.m. Reeves came out, mask down, gloves off. His face was exhausted, but his eyes were clear. He's stable, repaired the tear, Stop the bleeding. He'll need 48 hours minimum before he can be moved. 48 hours, Elena repeated. I know, that's a long time to keep someone safe. Marcus, I need to tell you something. There's more? They have Ortiz, my team leader, the last person left besides Kyle and me. They sent me a photo. He's being held somewhere. And the man doing this, Voss, he's using Ortiz as leverage to keep me quiet. Reeves pulled his surgical cap off and ran a hand through his hair. What are you going to do? The FBI has my evidence, everything I've been hiding for 5 years. If it holds up, Voss goes down. But if he kills Ortiz before that happens, then there's one less witness and one more ghost. Reeves leaned against the wall beside her. They stood there in the corridor, shoulder to shoulder, two people who had started this day as a surgeon and a nurse, and were ending it as something neither of them had prepared for. You know what I keep thinking? Reeves said quietly. What? This morning, when I walked into that trauma bay and saw what you'd done, 7 patients, all alive, I thought, who is this woman? How is this possible? He paused. Now I know, and I wish I didn't, because knowing means this isn't over. Elena nodded slowly. It's not. So what happens at the end, when the evidence comes out, when Voss is exposed, when the world finds out Ghost Cell 7 exists, what happens to you? Elena looked through the glass at Kyle sleeping in the recovery room, monitors beeping, chest rising and falling, alive because she'd refused to let him be anything else. I don't know, she said. I've spent 5 years planning how to stay hidden. I never plan for what happens when you stop. Reeves put his hand on her shoulder. For what it's worth, I'm glad you stopped. At 4:11 p.m., Holt called. Elena answered on the first ring. We got the storage unit. Everything is intact. Hard drives, flash drives, documents, the sealed envelope. My team is transporting it to the Richmond field office under armed escort. Elena closed her eyes. Mercer's envelope? Unopened, like you said. Open it. Elena, open it, Holt. Whatever Mercer put in there, he knew this day might come. He knew someone would need it. She heard the sound of paper tearing, then silence. A long silence. The kind that meant whatever Holt was reading had changed everything. Holt? His voice came back different, harder. Elena, Mercer didn't just write a letter. He wrote a full deposition, signed, dated, notarized, names, dates, locations, operational codes, everything Voss did, everything he ordered, including the termination orders for the Afghan witnesses. Elena gripped the phone. He knew. He knew Voss would come for all of you eventually. He wrote this as a dead man's switch. Mercer always was the smartest one in the room. There's one more thing, Holt paused. The deposition names a second conspirator, someone above Voss, someone who authorized the entire cover-up. Who? The name Holt spoke was one Elena had never heard before, but from the way he said it, slowly, carefully, like handling something that might explode, she understood that it belonged to someone powerful enough to make even the FBI pause. The line went quiet. Then Holt said, "This is bigger than we thought." Elena opened her eyes. Through the window, the late afternoon sun was turning the hospital corridor gold. Somewhere in this building, 7 patients were breathing because of her. Kyle was sleeping because she'd refused to let him die. And 5 years of silence was finally, irreversibly, broken. It was always bigger than you thought, she said. Now you just have the proof. She hung up, set the phone down, looked at her hands, the hands that had saved 7 lives, the hands that had fought off 2 operatives, the hands that had held classified evidence for 5 years, waiting for a moment she'd prayed would never come. Those hands were steady, and for the first time since Kandahar, Elena Caldwell wasn't afraid of what they could do. The call came at 5:47 p.m., not from Holt, not from Carr, from a number Elena didn't recognize. She answered anyway because at this point, Silence was more dangerous than sound. Elena Caldwell, a woman's voice, crisp, controlled. My name is Deputy Director Catherine Marsh, Department of Justice. I've been briefed on your situation. Elena pressed the phone tighter against her ear. Briefed by who? Agent Holt, and about 40 pages of evidence that just landed on my desk. I'm calling because in approximately 3 hours, I'm going to authorize a federal arrest warrant for Colonel Nathan Voss. Before I do that, I need to hear it from you. Hear what? That everything in these files is real, that you're willing to testify, and that you understand what that means. Elena leaned against the corridor wall. Her legs felt heavier than they had all day. It's real, all of it. You understand that testifying means your identity, your real identity, becomes part of the federal record. There's no going back to being invisible. I stopped being invisible at 9:12 this morning. Marsh paused. Agent Holt tells me you saved 7 lives today. That's what started all this. No, that's what ended your hiding. There's a difference. Another pause. I need you to stay in that hospital. Don't leave. Don't contact anyone outside of Holt's team. We're moving fast, but Voss has friends, and friends make things complicated. What about Ortiz? Marco Ortiz. They have him. I have proof. We're working on it. That's all I can say right now. That's not enough. It's going to have to be. Stay put, Miss Caldwell. The line went dead. Elena stared at the phone. Stay put. The 2 words she'd spent her entire military career refusing to obey. At 6:03 p.m., she checked on Kyle. He was awake. Barely. Agent Carr sat outside his door, arms crossed, badge visible. Inside, Kyle's monitors beeped with the steady rhythm of a man who'd been put back together by surgical hands. Elena sat beside his bed. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck, which I did. He coughed weakly. Reeves is good. He's the best. Second best, I remember who stitched me up in Kandahar with a sewing kit and a bottle of iodine. Elena didn't smile. Kyle, I gave the evidence to the FBI. His eyes sharpened. All of it? Everything. The drives, the documents, Mercer's envelope. What was in it? A full deposition. Names, dates, operational codes, everything Voss did, everything he ordered, including a second name, someone above Voss. Kyle closed his eyes. Mercer, you beautiful paranoid bastard. He saved us. Even dead, he saved us. Kyle reached for her hand. His grip was weak, but his eyes were fierce when he opened them. Elena, Ortiz. I know. They'll kill him. I know. So what are we doing about it? The DOJ is moving. Arrest warrant for Voss within hours. They say they're working on Ortiz. They say. I know what you're thinking. I'm thinking that every time someone in a suit said they'd handle it, one of us ended up dead. Elena didn't argue. She couldn't, because he was right. At 6:22 p.m., she found Holt in the hospital cafeteria. He was drinking coffee that he clearly wasn't tasting, staring at his phone like it owed him answers. Marsh called me, Elena said, sitting across from him. I know. She called me right after. She said you're working on Ortiz. What does that actually mean? Holt set down his coffee. It means we traced the photo they sent you. The metadata was scrubbed, but the file passed through a server in Arlington. We cross-referenced that with known DIA safe houses in the Northern Virginia area. There are 4 possibilities. 4 is too many. We're narrowing it down. NSA is running signals intelligence on Voss's known associates. If anyone in his network makes a call or sends a message from one of those locations, we'll have it within minutes. And if they don't make a call, if they just... Elena stopped herself. She didn't want to finish the sentence. We're going to find him, Holt said. Elena, look at me. We're going to find him. She looked at him. His eyes were steady, tired, but steady. 19 years of doing this, he told her. She had to believe that 19 years meant something. Her phone buzzed at 6:41 p.m. Unknown number again. She showed Holt before answering. He nodded and pulled out a recording device. Elena answered. I'm here. Nathan Voss's voice came through like cold water. You gave them the evidence. Yes. That was a mistake. No, the mistake was thinking I'd stay quiet forever. Voss was silent for 3 seconds. Do you know what happens now? Not to me. To you. To Dunham. To Ortiz. I know exactly what happens. A federal arrest warrant with your name on it. Warrants are paper. Paper burns. His voice dropped lower. I've spent 30 years protecting this country from threats that people like you can't even imagine. Everything I did, every decision, was in service of something bigger than any of us. You killed our friends. I eliminated risks. David Mercer was not a risk. He was chopping wood on his porch. Mercer was talking to a journalist. Did your FBI friends tell you that? He contacted a reporter at the Washington Post 3 days before he died. He was going to go public. Elena's stomach tightened. She hadn't known that. Rachel Santos, Voss continued, was building a case file. On her own, collecting evidence, reaching out to congressional staff. She thought she could take this to a hearing. And Tommy Hayes? Hayes was the most dangerous of all. He kept records, meticulous records of every mission, every order, every conversation. He was building a case that would have exposed not just me, but everyone above me, everyone who signed off on Iron Veil, everyone who authorized the cover-up. So you killed them all? I prevented a catastrophe. You prevented accountability. Voss laughed. It was a tired sound. You think accountability is what this country needs? You think dragging this into a courtroom will make anything better? The witnesses are dead. The compound is rubble. The intelligence we gathered saved thousands of lives. That's the math, Elena. Ugly, imperfect math. Mercer is dead because of your math. Rachel is dead. Tommy is dead. And right now Ortiz is sitting in a room somewhere with his eyes swollen shut because of your math. Don't lecture me about ugly. Silence on the line. Where is Ortiz? Elena asked. Somewhere safe. Safe for who? For everyone, including you. If this goes to trial, Elena, everything comes out. Not just what I did, what you did, the unauthorized copies, the classified material you've been hoarding for 5 years, the crimes you committed to preserve evidence you were ordered to destroy. I'll take my chances. Will you? Because a military tribunal doesn't operate like a civilian court, and the people above me won't let this become a public spectacle. They'll classify everything, seal the records, and you'll spend the next 20 years in a federal prison wondering why you didn't take the deal when I offered it. Elena gripped the phone so hard her knuckles whitened. Is that what this call is? One last deal? This call is me telling you that I'm not the monster you think I am. I'm a man who was given impossible choices and made the ones that kept the most people alive. You sound like me at 9:12 this morning, except I didn't kill anyone to do it. The longest silence yet. When Voss spoke again, his voice had changed, softer, almost human. I watched you work once, in Kandahar. You didn't know I was there. You were operating on a local boy. Couldn't have been more than 12. Shrapnel in his abdomen. No anesthesia. No sterile field. You talked to him the entire time. Told him stories about Virginia. About the river near your grandmother's house. You kept him calm. You kept him alive. And when it was over, you sat on the ground and cried for 10 minutes. Elena's throat tightened. She remembered that boy. That's who you are, Voss said. The person who cries after. Not during, never during. Don't pretend you know me. I know you better than anyone in that hospital. I know that you're not doing this for justice. You're doing this because you're angry. Because you lost people you loved and you need someone to blame. I blame you because you're guilty. I'm guilty of keeping secrets. So are you. The line crackled. Holt was writing something on a notepad and holding it up for Elena to see. 2 words. Keep talking. Elena steadied her voice. Where is Ortiz, Nathan? If I tell you, what do I get? You get to be the man who did one right thing at the end. Silence. Long enough that Elena thought he'd hung up. Then, Fort Hunt, the old storage facility off the parkway. Building 7. Holt was already moving. He pointed at Carr, who sprinted toward the security office. Is he alive? Elena asked. He was an hour ago. If he's not when they get there, then you'll have one more reason to hate me. But he's alive, Elena. I'm not the man who kills his own people. 3 graves say otherwise. Voss exhaled. I suppose they do. The line went dead. Holt grabbed Elena's arm. We've got it. Fort Hunt. FBI tactical team is scrambling now. 20 minutes. 20 minutes is a long time. It's the best we've got. At 7:09 p.m., Elena stood outside the hospital's main entrance for the first time since 9/12 that morning. The air hit her face like a memory. Cool, sharp, real. She'd been inside those walls for 10 hours, and the world outside felt both familiar and foreign. Her phone rang. Holt. We have him. Ortiz is alive. He's banged up. Broken nose, 2 cracked ribs, dehydration, but he's alive. He's being transported to Walter Reed. Elena's knees buckled. She caught herself against the wall. The sound that came out of her was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. She pressed her hand over her mouth and held it there until she could trust her own voice. And Voss? Gone. The building was empty except for Ortiz and 1 guard. Guard's in custody. He's already talking. Voss gave up the location. He knew you'd come. Which means he wanted Ortiz found. The question is why. Elena knew why. Because Voss wasn't a monster. He was something worse. A man who did monstrous things and still believed he was right. Giving up Ortiz was his version of mercy. His way of proving that he still had a line he wouldn't cross. It didn't change anything, but it complicated everything. At 7:38 p.m., Holt called again. The warrant is signed. Federal agents are moving on Voss's known residences. His assets are frozen as of 20 minutes ago. The second name from Mercer's deposition, the one above Voss, we're building that case now. It's going to take time, but it's happening. Time, Elena repeated. How much time? Weeks, maybe months. The evidence is strong. Mercer's deposition alone is enough for a grand jury. But the people involved will fight. They'll lawyer up. They'll claim national security. Will it hold? Elena, you gave us 3 hard drives, 2 flash drives, a box of documents, and a dead man's sworn testimony. If this doesn't hold, nothing does. She closed her eyes. Mercer. The man who never said more than 10 words at dinner. The man who cleaned his weapon like it was a prayer. The man who, in his last act before disappearing, sat down and wrote every single truth that powerful people wanted buried. He'd known. He'd always known that the silence wouldn't last forever, and he'd made sure that when it broke, the truth would be louder. At 8:15 p.m., Elena walked back through the hospital. The shift had changed. New nurses, new residents, new faces. But a few of the morning crew were still there. The ones who hadn't been able to leave, the ones who were still processing what they'd witnessed. She passed the trauma bay. The beds were clean now, fresh sheets, reset monitors, no trace of the blood, the chaos, the 7 lives that had hung in the balance just 11 hours ago. Dolores was still at the nursing station. Of course she was. 22 years of nursing meant you didn't leave until you were sure. You're still here, Elena said. So are you. I don't think I'm a nurse anymore, Dolores. The older woman took off her glasses and looked at Elena with eyes that had seen too many goodbyes. Honey, you were always a nurse. You were just also something else at the same time. Most of us are. Most of you didn't lie about it. Most of us didn't have to. Dolores reached out and straightened Elena's badge, the one that still said, Elena Caldwell, RN. Whatever happens next, you should know something. This morning, 7 families got their people back. 7 mothers, 7 fathers, 7 children, 7 lives that go forward because you were standing in this room. Nothing they find in your past changes that. Nothing. Elena's eyes burned. She blinked hard. Thank you. Don't you start crying on me. I just did my mascara. Elena laughed. A real laugh. The first one all day that didn't taste like fear. At 9:02 p.m., she sat in Kyle's room. He was more alert now, color returning. The monitors showed steady vitals. He'd survive. He'd always been good at surviving. They got Ortiz, she told him. Kyle's face broke open. Not tears, something beyond tears. Relief so deep it didn't have a sound. He pressed his fist against his forehead and stayed like that for a long time. Where? He finally asked. Fort Hunt. Voss gave him up. Voss gave him up? Yeah. Why? I don't know. Maybe he's tired too. Kyle shook his head slowly. Don't do that. Don't humanize him. I'm not humanizing him. I'm saying that even guilty people get tired of running. Even guilty people reach a point where holding on takes more energy than letting go. He killed Mercer. I know. He killed Rachel. He killed Tommy. I know, Kyle. So don't tell me he's tired. He's a murderer who got cornered. That's not the same as being tired. Elena didn't argue. She sat with his anger because it was honest and because some part of her felt it too. The part that would always feel it. The part that would never forgive Nathan Voss for turning Ghost Cell 7 into a graveyard. But another part of her, the part that had spent 5 years becoming someone new, understood something that Kyle didn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That carrying hatred was its own kind of prison, and she'd spent enough time locked away. At 9:30 p.m., Dr. Reeves found her in the break room. She was sitting at the same table where he'd found her that morning. Same cold coffee, same exhausted eyes. But something was different. Something in the way she held herself. Not smaller, not hiding, just still. Administration officially offered you the position, he said, sitting across from her. Trauma coordinator, Special Cases Training Division. They want you to teach what you know. What I know got people killed. What you know saved 7 lives in 1 hour. That's what they care about. That's what I care about. Elena wrapped both hands around the coffee cup. I don't know if I can stay here, Marcus. After everything that happened today, every person in this hospital is going to look at me differently. They're already looking at you differently. They have been since 9:12 this morning. That's what I'm afraid of. Why? Because being seen means you can't hide. And I've been hiding for so long that I forgot what it feels like to just stand somewhere and be myself. Reeves leaned forward. Then maybe it's time to remember. Elena looked up at him, the surgeon who'd arrived too late to save anyone and spent the rest of the day trying to save her. The man who hadn't flinched when 2 FBI agents told him his nurse was a ghost. The man who'd walked into the room when she needed an ally and never once walked out. You're not going to let me quit, are you? She said. Not a chance. Even knowing what you know? Especially knowing what I know. Elena, I've been a surgeon for 26 years. I've worked with hundreds of nurses, good ones, great ones. But I have never in my life seen anyone do what you did this morning. That wasn't luck. That wasn't adrenaline. That was a gift. And gifts like that don't belong in a storage unit in Richmond. They belong in a trauma bay saving lives. Her eyes burned again. She didn't fight it this time. At 10:17 p.m., Holt appeared in the doorway. His tie was loosened. His eyes were red. He'd been running on coffee and duty for 13 hours straight. Voss has been located, he said. He's at his residence in McLean. FBI tactical team is in position. The warrant is being served in the next 30 minutes. Elena stood. Is it over? The arrest is the beginning, not the end. There will be a trial, a long one. You'll be called to testify. So will Dunham. So will Ortiz when he's recovered. Mercer's deposition will be entered into evidence. The second name from the deposition We're building that case simultaneously. And until then, you're under federal protection. All three of you. Real protection this time. Not the kind that comes with a death certificate. Elena almost smiled. You remembered. I remember everything witnesses tell me. Occupational habit. Holt extended his hand. For what it's worth, Miss Caldwell, in 19 years of doing this, I've never met anyone like you. She shook his hand. I hope you never have to again. At 10:44 p.m., Elena walked through the hospital one last time. Past the trauma bay, past the nurse's station, past the consultation room where two FBI agents had pulled apart the life she'd built, past Kyle's room where he was finally sleeping without pain, past Dolores's station where the older nurse had already left for the night, a note taped to the computer that read, Elena, you owe me an explanation and a bottle of wine. In that order. She stopped at the main entrance. The automatic doors opened. The night air of Richmond rushed in, carrying the smell of the James River and the faintest trace of the season changing. Behind her, 7 patients slept in their beds. 7 hearts beating, 7 futures unfolding. Because at 9:12 on a Tuesday morning, a woman who'd been pretending to be small decided to be exactly who she was. Her phone buzzed one final time. A text from a number she recognized now. Holt. Voss is in custody. It's done. Elena read it twice. 3 times. Then she put the phone in her pocket and stepped outside. The stars were out over Richmond. Not many. The city lights stole most of them, but enough. She stood on the sidewalk in her blood-stained scrubs, her hospital badge still clipped to her chest, and she breathed. Not the controlled breath of a soldier managing adrenaline. Not the measured breath of a nurse checking vitals. Just a breath. The kind a person takes when they finally set down something they've been carrying for so long, they forgot what their shoulders felt like without the weight. 5 years ago, Elena Caldwell had been told that the price of survival was silence. That the only way to live was to become someone smaller, quieter, less. She'd paid that price. Every single day, she'd folded herself into a life that fit inside the margins of invisibility and told herself it was enough. It was never enough. Today, 7 strangers had needed her. Not the small version, not the quiet version, the real one, the one who ran toward screaming instead of away from it, the one who put her hands on dying people and refused to let go. The one who carried the weight of impossible decisions and made them anyway because someone had to, and she'd always been the someone. She thought about Mercer, chopping wood on his porch, writing truth in a sealed envelope, dying alone in a cabin in Montana because he dared to believe that the right thing still mattered. She thought about Rachel, building a case file in her apartment in Tucson, reaching out to people who might listen. Driving off a bridge because she'd gotten too close. She thought about Tommy, keeping meticulous records, writing down everything because he knew that memory fades but paper doesn't. Drowning in a lake because his notes were too dangerous to exist. She thought about Kyle, driving 3 hours on a highway to warn her, surviving an accident that was meant to kill him. Lying in a hospital bed right now because he'd refused to let his team die alone. She thought about Ortiz, bound to a chair with a broken nose, refusing to give up her location, holding the line the way he'd always held it, quietly, stubbornly, without complaint. Ghost Cell 7. 6 people who were trained to save lives in the worst conditions on Earth. 6 people who were erased because the truth they carried was more dangerous than any weapon they'd ever used. 3 of them were gone, murdered by a man who called it duty. 3 of them were alive, because one woman decided on one impossible morning that being invisible was no longer an option. Elena looked down at her badge one more time. Elena Caldwell, RN. The name was real now, not because it matched a birth certificate or a service record, because she'd earned it. 14 months of showing up. 14 months of holding hands and checking vitals and cleaning wounds. and being present for people on the worst days of their lives. That was who she was, not the ghost, not the soldier, not the classified file. A nurse who used to be a lot of things she didn't want to be anymore. And a woman who finally understood that the strongest thing you can do isn't survive, it's stop hiding. Elena Caldwell walked back inside. The doors closed behind her. The hospital hummed its quiet nighttime hum. And somewhere in Richmond, Virginia, 7 hearts kept beating. That was enough. That had always been enough.